You were told a comfortable story about success. Be smart, work hard, stay kind, and life will eventually reward you. Look around. That story is collapsing. The hardest workers you know are often underpaid and ignored. The kindest people get used as emotional dumping grounds. The smartest are stuck explaining themselves to bosses who could never match their thinking. The world does not consistently reward talent, effort, or goodness. It rewards those who understand power, perception, and timing. That is why some people with half your intelligence glide past you. They know when to be visible and when to disappear, what to say and what to hide, when to move and when to wait. They are not nicer than you, they are more strategic. You have seen it in the office, the mediocre coworker who always seems to land the promotion because they manage optics and alliances better than you manage your own schedule. You have seen it socially, the manipulative friend who somehow keeps the group orbiting them, even after everyone has a reason to walk away. You have seen quiet authority. We call them genius as if it were magic, but what you are really seeing is a way of positioning the mind. Real genius is not only high IQ, it is strategic invisibility, emotional control under pressure, and cold clarity about how people and systems actually work. Machiavelli watched princes rise and fall in the same patterns you see today in corporations, politics, and social media. The costumes have changed, the game has not. He wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be, few know what you are. Geniuses weaponize that gap. They allow the world to see a version of them that is safe, useful, or underestimated, while their true intentions and calculations stay hidden. This video is about the 7 ruthless laws behind that behavior. They are not spells or step-by-step manipulation tricks. They are psychological positions that change what you reveal, what you tolerate, and how you respond when the world pushes you. Before we dive in, understand this clearly. Dark knowledge is not automatically evil. Refusing to learn how power works does not protect you from it. It only keeps you weak in front of people who already play this game. These laws are for self-defense, clarity, and survival in an unfair environment. Used ethically, they make you harder to exploit, harder to guilt, and harder to control. Used without conscience, they can turn you into exactly the kind of predator you fear. Most people will never study any of this. They will spend decades blaming luck, fate, and toxic people while acting in ways that make them predictable and controllable. If you choose to keep watching, you are choosing something else, to think like a genius instead of a victim. The first shift is learning how the smartest players hide in plain sight, which is where Law 1, strategic invisibility, begins. Strategic invisibility is the reason some of the most dangerous minds you will ever meet look unthreatening at first glance. They are not the ones bragging about their plans or updating the world on every emotion. They move like shadows, present, watching, but never fully seen. This law says you never show your full hand, and you reveal only what serves your position in the moment. Most people do the opposite. They overshare their feelings and goals. They rant on social media. They dump their fears and secrets on people who have not earned that access. In doing so, they hand strangers a complete map of how to slow them down, copy them, or break them. The 48 laws of power warn you clearly: conceal your intentions, never outshine the master. Noise makes you predictable. Mystery makes you difficult to manage. Picture the average person at work. They brag about every new idea, complain openly about their boss, announce their career plans to anyone who listens. Colleagues quietly collect this information. One steals the idea and presents it first. Another uses the complaints to label them as negative. Management hears about their ambitions and feels threatened. By revealing everything, they have given everyone else time to prepare defenses. Now imagine the strategic mind in the same office. They develop a powerful idea quietly, refine it, document their contributions, and present it at the right moment to the right person. They do not hint, gossip, or overshare along the way. When the idea appears, it is already too solid and too valuable to be easily blocked without exposing obvious sabotage. What looked like a sudden leap was the result of disciplined invisibility. The same pattern plays out socially. Many people think vulnerability means dumping their entire history, trauma, and dreams on someone they just met. Then they are shocked when those details come back as weapons. The genius guards their core. They share small pieces, then watch how the other person handles them. Do they gossip? Do they mock? Do they use it? Later, in an argument. Only when someone proves they can hold information with respect do the deeper layers come out. This is not lying. It is selective truth and timing. Information is currency. Reckless exposure makes you predictable, controllable, easy to sabotage. Machiavelli's world was full of people destroyed, not because they were weak, but because they were readable. If people can fully read you, they can easily limit you. The most dangerous minds are rarely the loudest. They are the ones you keep underestimating until it is far too late. When you start practicing strategic invisibility, you stop performing for everyone and start watching everyone. And once you stop broadcasting and begin truly observing, you are ready for the next law, where geniuses use that quiet vantage point to see reality with cold clarity instead of emotional fog. Cold clarity is the habit that separates people who keep getting blindsided from those who quietly saw it coming months ago. It is the ability to recognize a situation as it is, not as your fear, loneliness, pride, or hope want it to be. Your emotions are allowed in the room, but they do not sit at the head of the table. Most people live the opposite way. They text back out of insecurity, not intention. They stay in dead-end jobs because the routine feels safe. They hold on to relationships that are clearly decaying because the idea of starting over is scarier than the pain they already know. Their feelings vote first, and their mind wakes up only after the damage is done. Geniuses move differently. They have emotions, but they do not obey them. When something happens, they pause. Before reacting, they ask a brutal question. What is actually happening here beneath what I wish was happening? That question creates distance. In that small distance, logic finally has room to breathe. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He warned that rulers who cling to how things should be are destroyed by how things are. The world does not reward your fantasy. It punishes your refusal to see the facts. Cold clarity is choosing survival over illusion. Take the toxic relationship you keep defending. Your story says, we have been together so long, they can change. It is not that bad. Cold clarity asks a simpler question. If I met this person today, for the first time, knowing everything I know now, would I choose them? If the answer is no, the truth has already spoken. Or look at your job. Comfort tells you that at least the paycheck arrives, and at least you know what to expect. Clarity counts something different. Skills you are not gaining, Years you are not getting back, resentment that grows each Monday. When you add those numbers honestly, staying begins to look more dangerous than leaving. Cold clarity is not heartlessness or psychopathy. It is not about becoming a stone. It is about refusing to let a sudden temporary storm inside you decide the structure of your life. If your decisions are run by your feelings, someone colder is already steering your future. Most people protect their comfort more than their destiny. Geniuses reverse this. Ask yourself today, where am I lying to myself about how bad something really is? That answer is the doorway to your next level of power. And once you step through it, the next move is learning where to put your effort so that every action multiplies instead of leaks, which is what the law of asymmetrical effort teaches you. The world worships hustle, but hustle without leverage is just elegant self-destruction. You have been sold the idea that if you simply grind harder than everyone else, success will eventually tap you on the shoulder. Yet, you know people who live at the office, sprint all day, and still stay stuck. The truth is, life doesn't pay you for effort, pays you for impact. Asymmetrical effort means placing your energy only where one move can create 10, 50, or 100 ripples, and abandoning the habit of pouring hours into things that barely move the needle. Machiavelli would call this planning to the end. The 48 laws of power whisper the same lesson when they tell you to build alliances, structures, and momentum instead of trying to carry every burden yourself. It is not about exploiting people. It is about designing systems where your intelligence multiplies your actions. Look at the average person. Their identity is exhaustion. They brag about how little they sleep, how many emails they answered, how many errands they ran. Ask what changed because of all that activity, and the answer is almost nothing. Now look at the strategic mind. Geniuses appear calmer because they are obsessed with results, not theatrics. They invest in scalable skills, communication that moves groups instead of impressing one person, systems thinking that organizes chaos, rare expertise that only a few possess. Every hour they put into these skills compounds, making each future decision cheaper and more powerful. They also care less about applause and more about assets. While most people chase likes, quick praise, and surface-level status, they spend their time building content libraries, businesses, tools, or networks that continue to pay them long after the initial push. This is the 80/20 principle in its sharpest form. A small set of actions produces most of your real results. When you finally accept that, you stop volunteering for every crisis, every distraction, every meeting that doesn't need you. You learn to say no without apology. Hard work without leverage is how smart people stay stuck. If your intelligence isn't attached to high-impact moves, someone dumber but more strategic will outrun you. As you start shifting your effort into the few things that truly multiply, you will feel a new kind of quiet power building. The only thing that can still destroy it is your own mouth, which is why the next law is about knowing when silence becomes the strongest shield you have. Until you master that discipline, every advantage you build can be erased by a single careless sentence. Leverage without discretion is bait for hungrier, more patient predators. Selective silence is the law that turns your quiet into pressure instead of weakness. Most people are terrified of silence, so they rush to fill every gap with explanations, jokes, and defensive babbling. They think talking nonstop proves confidence and honesty. In reality, it usually proves insecurity and lack of control. Every extra word you throw out is free intel for someone more strategic. Geniuses understand this, so they flip the script. They speak less and listen more. They treat their words like a weapon with limited ammunition. They connect naturally to the old rule. Always say less than necessary. Not because they are trying to be poetic, but because they know whoever controls the tempo of the conversation usually controls the outcome. Talkers expose themselves. In their rush to be understood, they reveal fears, intentions, grudges, and leverage points. They tell you what they are afraid to lose, what they desperately want, and where they have no options. Silent observers simply sit in the pocket and collect this information. They nod, they hold eye contact, they let the other person pour out everything, and by the time they finally speak, they already own the map of the other person's mind. Picture a negotiation. The average person states their position, then immediately starts softening it. But of course, I'm flexible. We could maybe do less. I really need this to work. They argue with themselves before the other side says anything. The strategic mind states their terms once, clearly, then shuts up. That silence feels heavy, so the other side scrambles to fill it. They start revealing what they actually need, what deadlines they are under, how far they can really move. In trying to escape the tension of the pause, they hand you every card at the table. Social life works the same way. When you enter a room and instantly perform, overshare, and dominate the conversation, you might feel powerful, but you are actually exposing your neediness. Walk into that same room with selective silence and watch. Who interrupts everyone? Who gossips the second someone leaves? Who flatters the important people and ignores the unimportant? Who quietly leads without raising their voice? Very quickly you see the real hierarchy and the hidden games. Silence isn't shyness. Shyness is fear of speaking. Selective silence is the choice not to. One is a cage, the other is strategy. A simple way to train this law is to pause 2 or 3 seconds before answering any important question. In those seconds, you calm your emotions, you watch the other person, and you decide whether answering even serves you. Once you start talking less and listening more, something else unlocks. You begin to notice repeating behaviors and hidden rhythms in people and systems. That takes you directly into the next law, the law of relentless pattern recognition, where conversation stops being random noise and starts becoming data you can use to stay 3 moves ahead. Relentless pattern recognition is the law that turns life from chaos into a rigged game you can finally read. It is the skill of seeing repeated behaviors, emotional reactions, and chains of cause and effect instead of treating everything as random. Most people refuse to do this. Every betrayal feels new. Every breakup feels unique. Every financial crash feels unimaginable. They say, "I can't believe this happened again," as if the warning signs weren't there the whole time. Geniuses live differently. They treat every event as a data point, every interaction as a sample, every reaction as part of a larger loop. Nothing is just a story. Everything is a pattern waiting to be decoded. Machiavelli built his philosophy on this. He watched rulers rise and fall in almost identical ways. The uniforms changed, the flags changed, the slogans changed, but the human drives. Underneath fear, greed, vanity, insecurity barely moved. That's why his ideas still apply in corporate boards and online mobs. History and human nature repeat because people don't change as much as they think. The 48 laws of power are essentially a catalog of recurring patterns. How flattery leads to overconfidence. How mercy without limits invites abuse. How power invites envy, which breeds betrayal. When you read them as patterns instead of tricks, the world starts to look eerily predictable. Look at your personal life. Maybe you know someone whose cycle goes like this: promise, charm, disappear, excuse. They swear they've changed, flood you with attention, vanish when responsibility appears, then return with a dramatic story about why it wasn't their fault. The first time, it's a mistake. The second time, it's a warning. By the third or fourth, it's an identity. You're no longer dealing with incidents. You're dealing with a pattern. In work and money, the same law rules. Companies send signals before they implode. Vague, restructuring emails, high performers leaving, sudden culture shifts, fake positivity from leaders. Markets repeat too: easy money, bragging about effortless gains, warnings mocked as negativity, then the fall. Pattern recognition is not mystical fortune-telling. It is disciplined observation, journaling, reflection, connecting dots. When you do this consistently, betrayals and collapses stop being shocking and start being scheduled outcomes you chose not to ignore. If you don't study patterns, you will keep calling predictable outcomes bad luck. Pattern blindness is how highly intelligent people still get blindsided. Try this simple exercise. Pick one person or system in your life. Write down their last 5 to 10 significant actions and circle what repeats. That repetition is your forecast. And once you start seeing these loops clearly, the next move becomes obvious. You must control how close you stand to them, which is exactly what the law of controlled distance is designed to protect. Controlled distance is the law that decides who can actually touch your life and who can only watch from the outside. Most people never choose this. They let anyone walk in emotionally, mentally, and even physically whenever they want. They answer every call, reply to every message, listen to every rant, and feel guilty the moment they consider stepping back. They confuse constant availability with kindness, but what they are really doing is putting their energy, time, and focus up for auction. The highest bidder is always the loudest crisis. Geniuses operate by a colder rule. They see their attention as a finite resource, like oxygen. They choose who breathes it. They decide who gets access, how often, and on what terms. If anyone can reach you anytime, they can pull you down anytime, so they design a layer of distance on purpose. That distance is not a wall of hate. It is a filter of strategy. Power dynamics have always rewarded those who know how to use absence. Machiavelli hinted at this when he observed that respect often grows when presence is rare. When you are always around, you are taken for granted. When you appear intentionally, people notice. Controlled distance flips the social script. You no longer chase attention. You let your scarcity raise your value. Look at drama-heavy friend groups. There is always a rotation of emergencies, betrayals, and meltdowns, and one person who keeps getting dragged in as the unpaid therapist. When you practice controlled distance, you step back from that role. You answer slower. You stop solving problems people refuse to solve themselves, and you let their chaos stay where it belongs. Some will call you cold. What they mean is they can no longer feed off you. At work, the same law saves you from being the permanent firefighter. When you train everyone to believe you are instantly reachable, their lack of planning becomes your emergency. Geniuses limit that. They block out deep work time, set clear boundaries on when they are available, and redirect small issues back to the people responsible. Distance is not arrogance or narcissism. It is refusing to be emotionally entangled in situations that do nothing for your future. It protects the bandwidth you need for strategy, creativity, and calm decision-making. Geniuses do not disappear by accident. They disappear to stay powerful. With that space reclaimed, you are finally ready for the most ruthless law of all, the obsession with outcomes that separates dreamers from real dominators. Start small by removing one pointless interaction this week. Then notice how much clearer your mind feels, because that clarity is exactly what you will need for the outcome obsession that comes next. Outcome obsession is the law that rips away your excuses and forces you to face the only thing that matters: what actually happened. Most people judge their choices by how right they felt, how hard they worked, or how noble their intentions seemed. If they can say, "I did my best," or "at least I was honest," they call it a win, even when the outcome is a wreck. Geniuses play a colder game. They measure decisions by results. Did this move my position forward or not? Did it serve the long-term strategy or just soothe my ego for a few minutes? If the answer is no, they do not worship the effort. They change the approach. Machiavelli understood this. In a dangerous world, he said, a prince must consider the outcome. History does not care how sincere a ruler was. It remembers whether the kingdom stood or burned. The 48 laws of power repeat this principle with ruthless consistency. Judge tactics by their effectiveness in complex human reality, not by how heroic they look in your imagination. Take arguments. The average person wants to be right. They raise their voice, dig up old wounds, embarrass the other side, win the debate and lose trust, cooperation, and future access. Outcome obsession asks a different question. What do I want to exist after this conversation? If the answer is respect, clarity, or a working relationship, then humiliating the other person is self-sabotage, not victory. In career decisions, the same contrast appears. Many chase shiny titles, brand names, and roles that look impressive online, but give them no real leverage. Years later, they wake up with status, but no power, weak skills, shallow networks, zero autonomy. The genius chooses roles that build assets, rare skills, strong connections, proof they can create results, even if the job title seems smaller for a while. They are not decorating AR sum, they are constructing a weapon. Outcome obsession is not nihilism or greed. It does not tell you to abandon ethics. It forces you to stop hiding failure behind pretty moral stories. If your kindness keeps you trapped with abusers, that is not goodness. It is self-betrayal. If your honesty destroys every alliance you need, that is not integrity. It is poor strategy. From now on, after every major decision, ask, did this produce the outcome I actually wanted, or just make me feel righteous? If you care more about looking right than being effective, you have already lost. Geniuses do not worship effort, they worship outcomes. When all 7 laws begin to live inside you at once, you stop moving like the crowd and start operating as something else entirely. Next comes the truly untouchable genius. Before these laws, your identity is built on reaction. You are overexposed, always explaining yourself, always available. Other people's moods drag you up and down. You say yes to everything, confuse busyness with progress, and keep walking into the same emotional traps because you notice stories, not patterns. You talk more than you listen, defend your image more than your future, and end each week wondering why life feels so unfair and draining when you know you are capable of more. That is the old version of you, talented, maybe even kind, but predictable and easy to move across the board. After these 7 laws, the shape of your mind changes. You become strategically invisible when needed, letting people see only the version of you that serves your position. You stay coldly clear under pressure, choosing survival and long-term advantage over short-term emotional relief. You pour your energy into high-leverage moves instead of endless grind. You use silence as a tool, not a fear. You read patterns in people and systems until very little truly surprises you. You guard your access, so not everyone can touch your time or your emotions. And you judge every major decision by outcomes, not appearances. What keeps geniuses above others is not mystical IQ or pure luck. It is the daily disciplined use of laws like these. They are psychological weapons. Used without conscience, they corrupt. Used ethically, they shield your mind and keep you from being used as anyone's pawn. To make this real, run a 7-day experiment. Day 1. Practice strategic invisibility. Notice where you overshare and cut one exposure. Day 2. Practice cold clarity. Face one truth you have been avoiding. Day 3. Practice asymmetrical effort. Replace one low-impact task with a high-leverage movie. Day 4. Practice selective silence. Pause 2 or 3 seconds before key replies. Day 5. Practice pattern recognition. Journal one repeating pattern you see. Day 6. Practice controlled distance. Reduce or cut one draining interaction. Day 7. Practice outcome obsession. Review the entire week only by results, not feelings. If you leave this video inspired but unchanged, you have just sharpened a weapon you will never use. The real gap between the average mind and the genius mind is not knowledge, it is execution. To commit publicly, drop one affirmation in the comments: my mind moves above the crowd, or I choose strategy over emotion, and tell me which law you will focus on this week. Like this, if it finally put words to patterns you have always felt. And subscribe for more Machiavellian power psychology. Master yourself, and you stop living like a pawn. You start thinking like the strategist of your own life. My mind moves above the crowd. I choose strategy over emotion. I am invisible until it's time to strike. I see patterns others ignore. My distance protects my genius. I worship outcomes, not appearances. I live by laws others don't even see. Drop this affirmation in the comments to claim it. I choose strategy over emotion. Tell me in the comments, which of these 7 ruthless laws will you practice for the next 7 days? Comment, I see the game. Now, if these laws finally explained why some people always seem 3 steps ahead.